everyone. My name is Kim C. I'm a university fiction teacher specializing in fiction workshop, and this is my one-woman Stephen King podcast, The Year of Underrated Stephen King. This show began with an ardent, borderline militant focus on the Stephen King titles in shadow, and that is still our main objective. But over the years, as the book journey road has branched and more friends have joined us on said road, I've made a little room for other paths of King that include his mainstream works and, of course, his epic, masterful, genre-bending opus, The Dark Tower. Today, my friends, we return to Midworld. Oh, finally! It's been a long road. It's taken me almost a year to get here. But this episode will contain all of my thoughts on Dark Tower Book 5, Wolves of the Calla. I do apologize on the delay. Life has a way of really interrupting you when you're having a good time, but we're here and we're ready. The path of the beam is before us. For those of you who have been with me a little while, you know that this is my very first time reading The Dark Tower, and I'm clinging to that as I enter into this episode because I'm nervous as hell. As hell, my good buddies. I know there isn't really a need to be nervous, but at the same time, there definitely is. You out there listening are either a tower junkie yourself, or you know some tower junkies. So you should all be able to nod your head when I proclaim that Dark Tower people are seldom lukewarm individuals in their fandom. There is a passion there that is very intense, a feverish devotion, an obsession of which now I fully endorse, support, and understand. But getting things wrong, well, that is, as I've come to realize, absolutely anxiety-inducing nightmare fuel. And I've definitely made some blunders along my tower journey. I said some Cuthbert and not Cuthbert, and I completely botched some of my Wizard and Glass coverage because I thought Eldred Jonas was just being a petulant punk brat by trashing Roland Delenn in Cuthbert's camp, but in actuality he planned for it to look like vandals ransacked the joint. And ladies and gentlemen, do you know who informed me of my errors? A listener or two or three with direct quotes of my mistakes, chapter and verse. Mind you, I'm incredibly grateful. Oh, so grateful for any assistance to right me when I'm wronging, but that helicopter vigilance seems to have contributed to a bit of today's nerves and apprehension, and I really don't want to screw anything up. Please hear me well. But in order to relax and just let this thing flow and be, and not be a completely timid walking on eggshells exploration, I have to embrace that I may miss big things. I may miss connections and forget to join some dots, but that's okay because it's a first-time read, and first-time readers miss things. And maybe when I'm a second-time, third-time, fourth-time tower reader, all of the nuanced story elements will be absolutely second nature, and I'll be the richer for them. One huge, amazing, ginormous concept I definitely realized on this initial reading of Wolves of the Calla is how much I completely understand the repeat tower experience. About halfway into Wolves of the Calla, I had the epiphany, guys. I said out loud to myself, oh, I'm definitely going to start this entire series over again. I will definitely start from the very beginning. And that's an exciting thing for me to realize, that returning to the tower is a part of the magic. And I've never felt that. I've never solidified and said it out loud until now. It's a big moment. Usually, because I'm an English major and have been for many, many years, I'm used to each new semester drowning in new texts. So when I read something, I relish my time with it, I take notes, I isolate parts to read out loud, highlight a couple things, stick some post-its in between, and on the shelf it goes until I return to it at a later time, and it might be 5 to 10 years, because full-on rereads are very rare for me, my dudes. I have so many other things to read. Even if it's King, it's hard for me to prioritize a title that I have read before unless I'm actively doing some kind of project with it. But Wolves of the Calla, let me tell you, really solidified something for me. I realized the Dark Tower is for repeat journeys. It's for more than one go, more than one walk with the quartet. And that, dear ones, is a really powerful and precious concept that deeply fulfilled me more than any other Dark Tower title has thus far. Granted, I was emotionally ravaged by Wizard and Glass, but Wolves of the Calla left me hopeful and happy, and in a way, I think I feel a bit closer to Tower fans than I've ever felt before, all because of Wolves of the Calla. I don't know why, but I realized after book 5 that the path beneath me will soon have deep grooves, and the whole point of that realization is discovering that it's supposed to. I'm supposed to have a well-worn path. I'm supposed to blaze a trail that I will walk again and again with this series. Ooh, lots of emotion, friends. Let's keep going. Down to brass tacks, this is a 2003 title. We're going to explore that year in particular a little more as we go deeper into the episode. But according to my 2004 Scribner Paperback, this is a 709-page novel, give or take, based on your edition, that's split into 5 parts. Our first part is the prologue, Runt. Part 1, Todash. Part 2, Telling Tales. Part 3, The Wolves, followed by our epilogue, The Doorway Cave. Let us now crack in with a summary. The town of Calla Sturgis needs help. In 30 days, the wolves from Thunderclap will return. Approximately every 25 years, for hundreds of years, a hooded gang on horseback will arrive, steal young children, disable them, and alter lives forever. Roland, Eddie, Susanna, Jake, and Oi know they have to help, and with the addition of someone from their world, from their time, they realize they have the opportunity to stop a dark reap and save not only a town, but generations. There is, of course, an entire other side to this novel that involves preserving the path to the tower between time and worlds, specifically 1970s New York. But at its heart, Wolves of the Calla is about the wolves and the Calla. It's a very rich work, layered, well plotted, and I'm ready to crack in, my friends. In this episode, please anticipate some plot spoilers. I'm sorry, but it's highly recommended you've previously read Wolves of the Calla because, as mentioned earlier, I've got my bag of seashells here, ready to spread them out on the shore for you, trying to make sense of things. And in that endeavor, I may or may not reveal more than I should. It's just gonna happen. I know it. I know myself. Sorry. I also don't think I'm going to be full-on analyzing this story too much. I really believe I don't have the know-how and the wherewithal to analyze the tower. I am not equipped for that. I don't feel it's the right time. So I've decided on this first journey, we're going to prioritize the experience of the story. So that's my plan, Stan. I am a tourist. I'm experiencing this for the first time. I'm just going to share with you everything that happened to me on my first journey. Coming up in this episode, we're going to take a look at the strengths and examine what's really, really working well, the strong parts of Wolves of the Calla, and what I noticed that really made me enjoy this ride. Next, we have some new-ish characters that absolutely shape this narrative and completely grab me from the start. I'm not going to mention everybody in the story, but I've cherry-picked some real gems that excited me, kept me thinking about them, so we will also explore our characters. Lastly, we're going to have some questions. Yes, because I got questions more than anything. It's mostly me asking myself and all of you, what's happening? Why? What's going on? What did I miss? I might have a little bit of criticism, just a tiny bit, but it's mostly going to be questions. Followed by my final thoughts, and then we'll sign off. And with that, come Kamala, everybody, and let's head into town. there is somebody at the chapel we gotta speak with. Let's start the show. Okay, everyone, welcome to the Strength section exploring The Dark Tower 5, 2003's Wolves of the Calla. I have 3 categories to explore with everyone, and let's firstly make sure you've got your hat, your gun, your boots, your bandana, and your horse, because we're headed west. Our first strength in this section is an homage to the Western. One of the aspects of Wolves of the Calla that absolutely has me standing up and cheering is what an homage it is to the Western in both film and narrative fiction. Now, I know I've mentioned this in my previous Wizard and Glass coverage and a little bit as well in my Wind Through the Keyhole coverage, because they both heavily feature some very well executed, awesome Western elements. But this time I really mean it, guys. And Wolves of the Calla inhabits not just the Western genre as a blanket statement, but specifically, it channels some of the greatest Western stories ever put to film. A little history for everyone. In 1956, the world was introduced to one of the greatest films of all time, which is the timeless epic from director Akira Kurosawa called Seven Samurai, which is about a poor village under attack from some bandits. They're consistently getting robbed and exploited, and their rice is getting jacked. It is no good. So they hire some samurai, 7 to be exact, to help them to stop this from happening. The film was so dang mind-blowing, groundbreaking, incredible. It actually still slaps, guys, I promise. Oh my goodness, it is still studied in film school to this day. It is a treasure. So Hollywood created its own version in 1960, starring Yul Brynner from The King and I, for musical fans out there. That was one I used to watch with my grandma all the dang time. So every time I think of Yul Brynner, I think of The King and I, and I think of her. It's a good thing. But anyway, that film was called The Magnificent Seven. And hopefully that title rings a bell, because The Magnificent Seven is a remake of Seven Samurai, only instead of rural Japan, we have a small village in Mexico. Hollywood would knock on the door again in 2016 with a remake of The Magnificent Seven directed by Antoine Fuqua, starring Denzel Washington and the celebrity crush of my life, Ethan Hawke. Guys, I love this version. I love it so much. It's a really, really great Western in general. It's just really good. It ticks all the boxes, and it's a very solid remake. I am pleased. If you are a Western fan and you haven't seen the 2016 remake of The Magnificent Seven, let's get on that. Other films that I believe are also pretty gunslinger essentials are the Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns directed by Sergio Leone that gave us A Fistful of Dollars in 1964, For a Few Dollars More in 1965, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly in 1966. In my living room right now, I have a Japanese poster of For a Few Dollars More. I love it so much. Clint Eastwood, it's his silhouette with the poncho. It's just a really beautiful piece of art. But yes, the roots of Roland Deschain have a trail, and you could follow them back to these Western films. Long story short, if you haven't seen any of the aforementioned titles, you're really doing yourself a disservice, as King himself gives these titles a shout out in the author afterward, and I believe they're pretty essential to the power of this story. And if you're a fan of Wolves of the Calla, you will love your life if you spend some time with these films. You will! The main premise of Seven Samurai is what King used to bring us the town of Calla Bryn Sturgis under quarter-century attack from the wolves. This town needs help real dang bad, guys, and the elders get together. There's about 140 of them, according to the text, and they decide to seek out help in the form of the last gunslinger and his gang of friends. They are desperate, and they really need outside help because what's been happening in this town, oh my god, it's pretty horrific. More on that later. But man, this is the most, I think, granted you guys know I haven't finished Song of Susanna or The Dark Tower 7, but I believe currently, this is the most Western-influenced Dark Tower title we've got thus far. I could be wrong, might be wrong, but that's just what I'm vibing right now. I know Wizard and Glass had a good chunk of Western immersion with the town of Hambry and the coffin hunters and whatnot, but we have a super high dose in Wolves of the Calla, and I absolutely love it. I feel it's very important we dig in and do a little bit of background homework on the inspiration King utilized for this story before we dig in a little deeper. Oftentimes, in my experience, exploring the inspirations of King helps contribute to the enjoyment of the work in a greater way, and I think it's ultra important we talk about what directly influenced Wolves of the Calla. Once more, if you're a fan of Wolves of the Calla and like the Western motif at its core, there are some very cool influences to supplement your fandom. Category number 2. Setting, immersion, and lore. Another Wolves of the Calla strength I absolutely love is how King really roots us into the town. We are very involved, very much a part of this present-day conflict within Calla Bryn Sturgis, the plight of its citizens, as well as its agriculture, lore, and traditions. And what's awesome is that it's maintained the entire story. Friends, King was so smart regarding the structure of this novel by beginning our story with the 30-ish page route, because the entire section is about what the town is up against and how they're coming together to try and solve the problem. Some think, absolutely, we have to stand and fight. Others are like, are you kidding me? We'll all be killed. Then who's going to raise the crops and the children? And then a couple came together and said, well, we kind of need to do both, don't we? We do have to make a stand, yes, we do, but we can't be the ones to do it, or rather, we can't do it alone. Man, it is such a skillful saturation and immersion with our setting, and I love that rather than immediately start off this story with the quartet, welcome back to your friends, everybody, we have instead this really decorated and detail-soaked section about the village. We first meet Tia Jaffords, who's trying to plow the field called Son of a Bitch, which is hysterical, so creative, so great. His sister Tia is with him, and they are a pair of adult twins. Tia was taken by the wolves and runt. Runt is one of our brand new vocab words for this novel, and it means someone who is cognitively disabled, someone who suffers from abnormal body growth, hair loss, they can't reproduce, and they're basically handicapped for the rest of their sadly short lifespan. We also learn that the village of Calla Bryn Sturgis is full of twins. Twins are a thing in this place. And single children are really prized and sought after because single kids don't get abducted by the wolves, but the singletons are really rare. We also learn that Calla Bryn Sturgis is a farming community. It's really agrarian. Rice and corn are the king crops, and there are generational mythos and stories and songs attached to their agricultural customs, such as the highly entertaining and really dangerous Lady of Ariza. Oh, that's such cool mythology that they hold very near and dear to their village. The plates of Ariza, very, very cool. A really cool weapon that we see in action later on in the novel. Guys, wow, it's so rich and so deep. It's really nice. I'm very pleased with what King did concerning the village and the inhabitants of Calla Bryn Sturgis. As you guys have previously heard in my fairy tale coverage, I said then, I do believe fairy tale is probably one of the largest King world building outputs, but when I'm focused on the Dark Tower specifically, I do think Wolves of the Calla gives us a lot, guys. Not as much as fairy tale, in my opinion, of course, but Wizard and Glass gave us a little bit. Book 4 brought us to the town of Hambry. We're in the sort of area of Magus. I don't really know how to describe the Magus-Hambry connection. I think Magus is the territory, Hambry is the main city. And then throughout that novel, the lore we have heavily featured is the reaping. These different moons that dictate how the season is celebrated. It's harvest time. The reaping is going to go down. There are lots of customs and celebrations. One of them being the Charyu tree. I'm not going back there. I don't want to cry today. But yes, got a little bit of world building throughout, but damn. Then we get to Wolves of the Calla, and it's working so well. I care so much as the reader. The stakes are so high for everyone involved. And the main focus isn't solely on the quartet, but there's this huge side conflict with other important characters, basically the entire village at risk. Oh man, it just gives this novel so much dimension and depth, and I'm thrilled about it. I'm also really glad, speaking of setting immersion, that we get to return to New York City with our other new vocab word, Toadash. Guys, I need a t-shirt with Toadash because I just find myself saying Toadash, Toadashin. It's a really fun word to say. I'm having a good time with it. But yes, Toadash, I don't think it's exactly astral projection. That's something that I was imagining when reading the story, but it's much deeper than that. The quartet really are physically in New York City in the 1970s, and the details are totally wild in terms of that exact time period they're there. Certain characters that we met in other Dark Tower novels, specifically the Drawing of the Three with Salazar and his gang, really creative, really unexpected. I enjoy what King did, not only with Calla Bryn Sturgis, but with our 1970s Manhattan sojourn. Oh, guys, the setting immersion is just incredible. I love how grounded we are in each location. Our last category is character development. We're going to do something a little different in this episode before we head into characters. So we're actually going to bridge the two sections together, which I think I might have done in the past, but I didn't really highlight it, but I'm really highlighting it today. I'm declaring that character development is a strength, and then we're going to bridge to our character section and talk about it. But before we head into characters, I have a slice of text I want to share with everyone that shows King playing with lore, making his own rule book about the concepts he's previously and currently writing about. Love to see it. And it also warms everyone up for the incredible characterization we see in this story. This scene is from the Telling Tales chapter, where we learn what in the heck happened to the seemingly fade into the background Salem's Lot priest. Everybody just kind of wrote him off for the most part, and how on earth he ended up in Midworld. So I wanted to share a slice of the very lengthy and very wonderful Father Callahan section that begins on page 268 of my American Scribner Paperback. I spent the next 9 months, until June of 1976, working at home. I made the beds, I cooked in the kitchen, I worked on fundraising calls with Lupe or sometimes Rowan, I took drunks to AA meetings in the home van, I gave shots of booze to guys that were shaking too badly to hold the glasses themselves. I took over the books because I was better at it than Magruder or Lupe or any of the other guys who worked there. Those weren't the happiest days of my life, I'd never go that far, and the taste of Barlow's blood never left my mouth, but they were days of grace. I didn't think a lot, I just kept my head down and did whatever I was asked to do. I started to heal. Sometimes, during that winter, I realized that I'd started to change. It was as if I'd developed a kind of sixth sense. Sometimes I heard chiming bells. Horrible, yet at the same time sweet. Sometimes, when I was on the street, things would start to look dark, even if the sun was shining. I can remember looking down to see if my shadow was still there. I'd be positive it wouldn't be, but it always was. Roland's quartet exchanged a glance. Sometimes there was an olfactory element to these fugues. It was a bitter smell, like strong onions, all mixed with hot metal. I began to suspect that I had developed a form of epilepsy. "Did you see a doctor?" Susanna asked. I did not. I was afraid of what else he might find. A brain tumor seemed most likely. What I did was keep my head down and keep working. And then one night I went to a movie in Times Square. It was a revival of 2 Clint Eastwood westerns, what they used to call spaghetti westerns. "Yeah," Eddie said. I started hearing the bells, the chimes, and smelling that smell stronger than ever. All this was coming in front of me and to the left. I looked there and saw 2 men, one rather elderly, the other younger. They were easy enough to pick out because the place was 3/4 empty. The younger man leaned close to the older man. The older man never took his eyes off the screen, but he put his arm around the younger man's shoulders. If I'd seen that on any other night, I would have been pretty positive what was going on, but not that night. I watched, and I started to see a kind of dark blue light, first just around the younger man and then around both of them. It was like no other light I'd ever seen. It was like the darkness I'd felt sometimes on the street when the chimes started playing in my head. Like the smell. You knew these things weren't there, and yet they were. And I understood. I didn't accept it, that came later, but I understood. The younger man was a vampire. He stopped, thinking about how to tell his tale, how to lay it out. I believe there are at least 3 types of vampires that work in our world. I call them types 1, 2, and 3. Type 1s are rare. Barlow was a type 1. They live very long lives and may spend extended periods, 50 years, 100, maybe 200, in deep hibernation. When they're active, they're capable of making new vampires, what we call the undead. These undead are type 2s. They are also capable of making new vampires, but they aren't cunning. He looked at Eddie and Susanna. "Have you seen Night of the Living Dead?" Susanna shook her head. Eddie nodded. The undead in that movie were zombies, utterly brain-dead. Type 2 vampires are more intelligent than that, but not much. They can't go out during the daylight hours. If they try, they are blinded, badly burned, or killed. Although I can't say for sure, I believe their lifespans are usually short, not because the change from living in human to undead and vampire shortens life, but because the existence of type 2 vampires are extremely perilous. In most cases, this is what I believe, not what I know. Type 2 vampires create other type 2 vampires in a relatively small area. But this phase of the disease, and it is a disease, the type 1 vampire, the king vampire, has usually moved on. In Salem's Lot, they actually killed the son of a bitch, one of what might have been only a dozen in the entire world. In other cases, type 2s create type 3s. Type 3s are like mosquitoes. They can't create more vampires, but they can feed and feed and feed. Oh guys, it is such a treasure trove. I love that scene so much, and when I encountered it during my reading, I just wanted to cheer. I think I might have cheered. I just held the book up in triumph because This is one of my largest complaints against King, is he never spends time going into the details. He just glazes over and on to the next thing. But he actually spent some time mapping out how he believes vampires operate in his world, which I really, really enjoy. In addition to that, this is warming up to the absolutely incandescent and beautiful section for Father Callahan. We spend a lot of time with this man. He really, really provides a lot of detail on where this man was for several years. We will get more into that in our next section, but oh my gosh, friends, I'm smitten. Vampire lore, Father Callahan character exploration, win-win, baby, win-win. Let us do a quick recap of the strengths we explored in Wolves of the Calla. Number 1, an homage to the Western. Number 2, setting immersion and lore. And number 3, as we bridge to our next section, character development. At this point in time, let's jump to our next section where we will explore characters. And there are even more strengths. The strengths continue. Overflowing with strengths this title, guys. The character work in this story is off the chain, absolutely nuts. And let's head there now, my friends, because I've had a muffin ball or two, and I need a little nap, and I might be ready to go on a little interdimensional trip. So I'll see everybody in the next section. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the area of the episode where we explore heroes, villains, and honorable mentions. Or, if you're a Dark Tower story, it's an amalgamation of all three, all the time. As I previously stated in our last section, for the most part, I believe no one would really be rubbed the wrong way if we talk about the Dark Tower as a character-driven experience. I think that's pretty legitimate and won't get us into too much trouble. The plots are incredible, but these characters are why I'm following along so closely, and I think it's the same for a lot of Dark Tower folkin. For this installment, Dark Tower 5, we've got some absolute winners. And of course, we're going to start it off with one of the coolest, most interesting, most mind-blowing Stephen King ladies ever. A fourth has come forward, and she's all about that baby. Our first character explored is going to be Mia, daughter of none. Oh my goodness, friends. Okay, where do I even start with this lady? Okay, well, for those of us who are keeping up with the story, we know that Odetta Holmes, Detta Walker, and then Susanna Dean, that's our triple person who we're working with in this story. Susanna Dean is, of course, the wife of Eddie Dean, and in this narrative, we are revisiting the plot thread that occurred in the Wastelands when Jake comes through from New York. He's kind of like born, he's delivered from his timeline in New York City into Midworld. It's a really dramatic, very climactic scene. And while all that's going on, Eddie's feverishly drawing this key. It's crazy. Well, there's this dark entity that is having sex with Susanna / I think it's mostly Detta. It's mostly, if I'm remembering the scene correctly, it's a very Detta Walker scene. It's ridiculous. Oh my God. But yeah, sadly, we find out at the end of The Wastelands, there is indeed a confirmed pregnancy. So we are revisiting that. And this scene with Susanna / Mia, this fourth who has come through, probably one of my favorite scenes in the entire novel. It's pretty early on in the story. I think Jake and Eddie and Oi, they be toe dashing. They be in New York. And Mia takes over Susanna's body. Susanna crawls to a swamp / bug area. It is creepy. And she is wading around in the muck, eating any creature she can find. She is ripping the legs off of frogs and diving into whatever sort of swamp vermin she can get her hands on. Guys, it's gross. It's so vile. But it's also fascinating because in Susanna's mind, the character of Mia is... I don't remember if it's explicitly stated that she's in the Gilead Palace. I don't recall. She's in a palace banquet hall. She's wearing a beautiful gown, and she's got her plate, and she's grabbing at items of food she wants to eat, and she is taking bites of those items. Well, in reality, she is eating swamp creatures. Susanna's body is eating these vile things that would absolutely have her vomiting and retching, and she's not gagging, she is just chomping them down and swallowing, and I am fascinated. Meanwhile, in the background, Roland is cautiously observing. So what we know about Mia is she is this maternal identity, this maternal force that cares about nothing and no one else but her chap, her little baby. I don't know if it's gendered quite yet, but I'm getting the vibes it might be a boy. I think there's some contextual hints at that, which is freaking me out. So potentially a boy, this baby, and she wants to feed it. She only cares for this growing fetus. That scene. Mia, when she comes forth and she takes over Susanna's body, it's all consuming. She doesn't care about Susanna, only the chap. And she's got to feed the chap. And feed she does. And here's where it was wild. The next morning after that scene where Susanna's just eating every vile creature in the swamp, the next day I was thinking to myself, she's going to be sick. She's going to be throwing up. She is going to be super poisoned. Oh my goodness, she is gonna die from all of the crazy creatures she ingested. And she wasn't, guys. She wasn't. Which leads me to think, oh God, that thing growing inside her, it ain't good. And I'm really glad I wasn't alone in that thought process, because Roland and Eddie quickly get on board that this ain't good. This ain't good. We got problems. But yes, Mia, daughter of none, is now the fourth. She is fascinating. She is maternally fearsome, brutal, cunning, manipulative, and I feel Miss Susanna Dean does not have a chance. Neither does Detta, for that matter, which I never thought I would see. But Detta seems to be righteously squelched, and Detta, we haven't really seen her in a really long time. It's mostly Susanna. I think everybody kind of merged and quieted down, and Susanna is in real danger, friends, and I'm very, very concerned in terms of plot. But yes, Mia, daughter of none, and her chap. Our second character that is a ton of fun and also incredibly complex is Andy, our robot. You heard me right, folks. We do indeed have a robot named Andy. He is said to be very tall, approximately 7 feet. He is, I think, all gold, if I remember correctly. He's gangly, he looks like a child's drawing, And he really likes to give people horoscopes. He's very informative in that way, but he's kind of like a lovable nuisance to the town of Calla Sturgis. He's just been there for a really long time, generations. And he is from, I think I wrote this down right. This is where my Dark Tower info was a little fudgy. The world that has moved on stuff, the North Central Positronics thing, the tech company, all of that, I'm like, what in the hell are these words? What am I saying? But Andy is from there. I believe that is where he was manufactured, North Central Positronics, as was, I believe, don't kill me, Dark Tower people, Shardik from The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon at the very end. I think there's some North Central Positronics action in that as well. Again, still learning, still connecting dots here. But yes, Andy is very similar to CP-30 from Star Wars, who is a protocol droid. He belonged, if you've seen the films, to young Anakin Skywalker on the planet of Tatooine. He built him. He helps a lot in terms of language interpretation and customs. He's all about that indoor life, 3PO, but he always gets in sticky situations. Andy, I believe, is knocking on the door of CP-30. And he is not really respected by the town. They're kind of like, shut up, Andy, get out of here. But he actually serves a rather pivotal plot in this novel. I'm not going to spoil it. It's cool. I was into it. Basically, never, ever, ever underestimate artificial intelligence, everybody. I think we know that now in our modern day, but just don't do it, damn it. One should not underestimate Andy. Don't think he's just the lovable robot spouting nonsense and revealing horoscope data. Much more there. So Andy the robot, our second character. Number 3. Oh my gosh, this guy in this book, I can't even, ladies and gentlemen, wow, I'm shaking my head with the mastery, with the perfection, with the layers, with the details. Father Donald Callahan. That's right, everybody. Oh my gosh, I have a lot of sub-bullets under Mr. Callahan, so let's get into a few of these. So one of the most fascinating aspects of Father Callahan in Wolves of the Calla is that he likens himself to someone who has the mark of Cain upon him, and I really love that descriptor. It is from the Bible, of course, the story in Genesis about Cain and Abel. Abel's the good brother, Cain is the not-so-good brother who murders Abel. And it is said, it's very mysterious, it's a little bit cool to think about in terms of storytelling. The Lord was upset with Cain for what he had done and put a mark upon him, the mark of Cain. This mark isn't a physical mark, but they believe it made Cain immortal, and he wanders the earth, never being able to die, never being able to find peace. Others believe that it marked him as someone who would propagate a civilization that would be cursed. So anyone from Cain's lineage was going to incur the wrath of God. And so everybody attributes, oh, this group, this warring nation, these bad people, they're descendants from Cain. I don't know how much scholarly evidence I have. I have to check through my old textbooks on this. But anyway, Father Callahan says he has a mark of Cain upon him because Barlow bit him, Kurt Barlow, our vampire antagonist in Salem's Lot, and then he made, which is the rule for making vampires, he made Father Callahan drink his blood. So he has this very strange set of years following that event, and he's a little bit on the road, literally, with the Kerouac experience. Years and years and years wandering, traveling, poverty, random interactions, bus stops. It's fascinating, and King just does a beautiful job bringing the years of Callahan's life to the reader. I believe we go from 1975 to 1983 when he enters Midworld. So we have a lot of years that we cover what he was doing. A lot of chapters in italics, giving that in and out of memory quality. From the moment we leave Salem's Lot, we get to know what happened to this guy. And it's such a great payout, guys. Wow, such rich storytelling, beautiful narration. I'm really pleased. Then we also have the vampire lore that I discussed in our previous section, or rather the section from the text I read that talked all about the kind of vampires he's able to see and hunt. He does become a vampire hunter. He's taken out a few wherever he goes. He smells that burnt onion smell. He sees the glowing blue light, and he wants to stop them and fully embraces the role of vampire hunter. He's like, well, this is my lot in life, pun intended, and I might as well roll with it and take out bad guys as I see them. What's very interesting is this brings in an added layer of complexity for the plot by connecting Callahan to the low men. Oh, I love this, guys. This area of the novel brings in the low men from the novella Low Men in Yellow Coats, which is the first story in the Hearts in Atlantis story collection from 1999. Friends, I love this crossover. Low Men in Yellow Coats, if you haven't read it, is one of the most beautiful novellas. I forget where it was in my top 15. I think it's in the gold table for sure. It's definitely up there. I adore Low Men in Yellow Coats. It is so strong, so full of heart. So the low men have crossed over into Wolves of the Calla, and they are hunting Father Callahan, subtly as the low men do, but they want him. Eventually they kind of do get him. They get their man. The other fascinating part, guys, this one blew me away. This one absolutely, like, I was not expecting this, especially because Father Callahan did upset me once or twice with his views on terminating a demon baby. Whatever. We know that's from his Catholic roots. I'm not touching that. You know what I'm talking about. But Father Callahan admits to being a little sexually fluid, and there is some homosexual attraction and love for his friend who worked with him at the home shelter in New York City named Lupe Delgado. He loved this man. He mourned him when he passed. He is so matter-of-fact telling the quartet, yeah, I loved him. I guess that makes me gay. I guess we're all kind of gay. Who cares? I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you how. It's just fascinating. He doesn't get hung up on it. He just says, this is how I felt. I don't know what it means. All I know is the truth of my feelings at the time. Incredible, guys. Like, do you know how monumental that is? For someone who's seemingly uptight or has tighter roots on certain principles, it was mind-blowing. I was absolutely celebrating this because it's so unexpected. It's another layer of complexity. And we've already got a huge pancake stack of stuff. It was awesome. I just couldn't believe it. Wow, Father Callahan, I think I know you. I think I'm gelling with the story you're telling me. And then you just... another stack on the pancake heap. Okay, this is a very big plate of food I have. Dang. I loved it. Very, very impressed by the gorgeous narrative character development we have for Mr. Father Donald Callahan. We get to see him in his timeline, bouncing around America year after year after year, life and time just washing over him. And then we learn what happens when he crosses into Midworld. He sets up shop in Calla Sturgis, and he has been ministering and proselytizing to people. A large majority of the village in Calla Sturgis are Christians/Catholics. They definitely are reciting Catholic prayers and know all the things, so he's been continuing his ministry as a Catholic priest over in Midworld, which is also fascinating because it's such a hodgepodge of timelines and dimensions, but some things are similar, such as the tenets of Christianity. I know I didn't want to touch on it. Again, I am just a little bit, not surprised, of course, but I am shaking my head at some of Father Callahan's choices in regards to women's reproductive health. Anyway, moving on. My fourth character that, guys, I was so pleased. Oh man, I don't know if we have a ton of information on this character, but I really liked her. I really liked her a lot. And that is Miss Rosalita Munoz, our Latina heat and the companion of Roland Deschain in this novel. They hook up, my dudes, and it's great. I love a little bit of romance. Once more, let me preface, quality, well-written romance. Romance for the sake of romance doesn't always work, but I think we have a real nice connection between these two. And guys, it's so Western, right? You always, 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 in the history of every Western, since the actual real Western days of old, you've got the saloon and the saloon girls. These men are on horseback for miles and miles and miles of open nothingness. You get into the town and you go to the saloon where you will have a chance to relax. Hear some music, play some cards, drink some whiskey, and you might want to get your rocks off at the end of the night with somebody who can provide that service to you. So we do have a saloon girl. I believe Rosalita Munoz can fit into that category, but she's so much more than that. I wrote down that she's not a Jilly, which is my understanding for a prostitute in Midworld. Jilly is also a pirate word. I believe that's what pirates would call them. There's also a whole restaurant next to Treasure Island in Las Vegas called Jilly's, and I think it's based off of that, a pirate wench, so to speak. But they are paid. This would be a prostitution-like scenario where sex is exchanged for money. I don't think we ever see that with Roland. I think Rosalita was all about charitable service to Roland. She was into him. She liked him. They had a lot of erotic touch, a lot of massage and comfort. And yeah, they had some romance together while he was in the town. And it didn't distract him from anything. Rosalita is also really good at throwing the plates, which is that whole really cool side lore. It's similar to horseshoes or something like that. Like, it seems that it has its roots in a game and frivolity, but the plates are actually really sharp and can kill people. And they in fact do. It's great. So Rosalita is skilled. She helps the endeavor. She wants what's best for the town. She's a kind person, and she's seizing the moment. She knows that Roland is only in town for a little while, because remember, we've got 30 days until the wolves show up, so we've only got a little bit of time while we've got these gunslingers in town. She's like, I'm going to make the most of the moment. I'm going to make the most of my time with this person and enjoy it. And she does, and he does, and I like it. I think it's a sweet aspect of this story. It is not heavily detailed, and that's okay. We don't need a lot of detail. He leaves a lot up to the imagination, which is a great place for a romantic encounter sometimes. So I'm a fan of Rosalita Munoz, and it's nice. I mean, you've got Susanna and Eddie together. They're a couple doing couple things. We know that. And then what was also cool is with our next character, who really, really impressed me. Now, this is a character we already know about, we're already really familiar with him, but he is an honorable mention in this episode, because I'm really impressed by Mr. Jake Chambers, everybody. Our fifth character in exploration is Jake, because I don't know, I was just really impressed and thrilled for his growth in this tale. I feel he's really grown up emotionally. He seems to have some real healthy communication. He is very upfront by verbalizing his feelings and being really clear with what he wants to communicate, even if he's a little nervous. There's some really good Roland Jake moments in this story that are precious. But Jake also goes on this very important solo mission to do a little bit of spying. He goes to the Dogan, which is an old outpost for North Central Positronics. I hope I got that right. Oh my god, my notes. I mean, anywhere I could step on a landmine. I know that, but yes, he goes to the Dogan on a special spy mission. He learns a lot. He learns some things that aren't good. And he's just brave. I mean, he's always been brave. We know this. Jake has always been brave, but he's growing up, and I feel he's really self-assured. He's really strong. He understands hard things. I also think his gunslinger talents are really up there. He's just maturing. I think that's what all of this is about, and I love to see it. And I'm really glad that it's evident in this story. Jake is growing up. He's becoming a man, and I like it. I like to see it. I'm really glad he has a friend, little Ben Slightman Jr. Is it Ben Slightman Sr.? I just wrote down Elder Slightman for the dad. Perhaps I should not have done that, but Ben Slightman is his friend, and he is still taking great care of Oi. I was just really impressed with Jake in this installment. I really, really love him. I always have. I always have loved Jake, especially once he got ran over, and I mean, Jake he's had a lot of hardship, guys. He's died a lot, literally. And I'm just impressed with his behavior and his choices in this story. So our little Jake Chambers is growing up. He's my honorable mention. All right, friends, let's recap our characters we explored. We have, number 1, Mia, daughter of none, caring about the chap and no one else. Number 2, we've got Andy, the robot. Number 3, Father Donald Callahan. Wow. Number 4, Miss Rosalita Munoz. And number 5, honorable mention, the maturing Jake Chambers. Okay, good friends, at this point in time, I think we gotta get ready. The wolves are coming. We need bullets, provisions, organization, a plan, and Black 13. Let's get to it. I'll see everyone in our last section. All right, dear ones, welcome to our final section, Exploring Wolves of the Calla. This is our criticism and question section. Oh, this is a long list. Usually we don't have long lists. Usually it's like 1 or 2 little peccadillos I have, followed by 1 or 2 little... Nope, we got a list. But again, as I mentioned, this could be the fact that my Dark Tower knowledge is not where it should be for book 5. That is possible because I have had such a large chunk of time in between novels. Apologies. That could be the reason why there are so many questions. Or it could be that it's perfectly normal that I have questions at this time of the reading because the next book needs to answer them, so to speak. It's okay because King is planning to answer them in the upcoming stories. And my questions are valid. My concerns are valid. I'm hoping it's the latter. My first, well, I guess this is a criticism. Yeah, it's probably best that we start there. I'm slightly struggling with our finale with the wolves. The whole thing we were working towards for 700 pages, it seems a little anticlimactic. We do have a little bit of death and destruction. We do. I do believe it's a satisfying action sequence, but it seems like it's over somewhat abruptly, which I understand why in terms of what the wolves really are, which they're not what people have assumed they are, which is human. Pardon for the spoiler there. But typically in Westerns, we have a big bad or a ringleader. In Wizard and Glass, we had Eldred Jonas, who is the leader of the Coffin Hunters. So that standoff, that main spotlight on the big bad villain, it's part of the Western thing, and it's kind of a great aspect of storytelling. You have the big boss at the end of the level in your video game. You have the main person that we need to destroy and take out. I don't feel we have that in this story, and it makes the conclusion slightly anticlimactic, because without a face-off like we have in most Westerns, for example, in the novel Lonesome Dove, it's the character of Blue Duck. He's the big bad. there's an awesome face-off. In the classic, amazing cowboy film Tombstone, you got the Red Sash Gang, and the leader of the Red Sash Gang, his name is escaping me, of course, but we always have the big bad, the leader. We don't have that in this novel. So when the conclusion is over, it's like, oh, okay, well, that was a lot of buildup. All right. Meanwhile, the action gets sliced in half because Susanna disappears, and the novel really ends on a cliffhanger in terms of where she went, and holy crap, and whoa. So I get that. I get that that was the creative choice he wanted to make, but I wish we could have had a face-off moment with the head of the wolves, somebody, the ringleader of the wolves, somebody who was controlling them. I wanted a little more. I hope I didn't miss something. Very possible that I did. As always, that's a possibility. But it's a little anticlimactic. My second question. Friends, why is Harry Potter involved? We have Harry Potter mentioned directly, and we also have these wolf weapons called sneeches, which is very similar to a snitch, which is the flying golden ball in the Quidditch arena. Excuse me, what? Why is Harry Potter involved? Why are there... okay. Did I miss something? Is King of J.K. Rowling fan? And that was just... wow, we're going to make this magical and sci-fi, so I do have a question on that. Third question, why is Stephen King breaking the fourth wall? Why is Stephen King involved in this story? Why are his published novels involved? And Father Callahan picks up Salem's Lot. Legit, guys, he picks up a copy of Salem's Lot from 1975 and he's reading about himself. I mean, it works, but it also doesn't. He could have put any other author's name on that. I'm okay that Father Callahan is reading a book about himself. I think that tracks with this interdimensionality. I'm on board. I've been on board for several novels now. I've suspended my disbelief. I'm absolutely just going with the flow. But this is where I'm like, okay, we gotta pump the brakes. What? What's going on here? Okay. I'm a little curious as to why that's happening. Maybe I'm right on schedule, unknown. My fourth question, I did a little bit of rereading to backtrack my understanding of the whole plot at large, right? The conflict at the center of this novel is that Calla Sturgis is being victimized by the wolves. Their children are stolen. Their children are maimed and mutilated, but for what purpose, right? The reader is constantly asking ourselves, what did they do to these kids? Why are they hurting these kids? What in the hell? Well, we finally find out on page 659, I think, page 660 of the Scribner Paperback. And it has to do with the Dark Tower, of course, but being a source of food for breakers. That's my question, guys. What's a breaker? My knowledge of the tower thus far is that Roland is on a mission to protect/save the tower. But I believe others, potentially the Crimson King, want to destroy it? Yes? Yeah? They want to take it out, destroy the tower, destroy all life, all times, all worlds. And they do that by breakers? Question mark? What? So I think that's where I'm left. Where am I missing? What connections am I missing? Or are the connections, I haven't arrived to them yet? Are they in the next few novels? If anybody wants to let me know about that, that would be, well, if anybody wants to chat with me about any of the following, I'm thrilled. I absolutely invite all of your thoughts. Totally. And then here's my next question. This is question number 5. I got multiple ones attached. Who are the Manni? And this is something I think I missed. I think I'm just forgetting. My understanding of the Manni, they are a religious order, kind of like monks or the Jedi, which I'm so into them. I think that's why I am asking this question, because I like any kind of religious order. I'm very, very into. I did get my minor in religious studies. I'm a huge, huge fan of the field, and it's a hobby of mine. It's an academic subject I'm very, very passionate about. So the Manni, I want to know more about them. I know I've heard them mentioned in other novels, but maybe I didn't, and maybe they've just been the most prevalent here. And we meet them in the prologue when all the elders have gathered to discuss what they're going to do about the wolves, and we've got the Manni. And I'm assuming it's some sort of monk-like order. I don't know, but I'm into it. I'm getting Jedi vibes from them. They're very balanced, stoic individuals. I am Team Jedi all the way. I absolutely serve the rebellion in Star Wars, but I'm very, very, very Team Jedi. The Jedi Order is my heart song. If I were to be any Star Wars character, I would definitely be on the Jedi Council, or... I know it's not perfect, I know they have their problems too, but I'm getting Jedi vibes from the Manni. Is that accurate? Am I dead wrong? And if I did miss data about the Manni in previous novels that I have read already, please let me know. I would love to spend a little bit of time rereading certain passages that I missed this data on, because I'm interested in the Manni. Also, my dudes, it's the end of Book 5, and where is the Crimson King? I thought he was such a huge part of this world. Where is he? What's happening there? We first hear about the Crimson King in the Gunslinger with Sandra? I think it's Sylvia. There's there's a firearm abortion. There's a Crimson King baby in there, I believe. And then it's peppered throughout. We've got some drawings of the eye. We have mention of the Crimson King, and I have done a little bit of research. Not a lot of spoiler stuff, but basically I fell down a rabbit hole in terms of the line of Eld, because I forgot what that was about, and I forgot it has something to do with Arthur and Excalibur, and the sandalwood from Excalibur is in the guns for Roland's, So I forgot all that, so I had to do a little bit of research on the line of Eld, because they do say that a lot in this novel, and I was like, what in the what? I need to backtrack a little bit. And I did read a little something about the Crimson King, but it was mostly like, oh, he wants to tear down the tower and blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. Cool. I knew that. That tracks. But guys, where is he? Where'd he go? What is going on with this character, the Crimson King? Where's his throne? Where's his kingdom? Again, could be missing things. Is he in the Dark Tower, the Crimson King? Is that where he lives? Where's he at? When will I know? This is where it's a struggle, and this is why I'm definitely going to reread the Dark Tower, for sure. All of the books. Because I think there are so many details to keep track of, that if I don't hear from a character in a while, they slip my mind, out of sight, out of mind kind of deal. And so then it comes to me like, oh, where's this person? What's going on? The other thing I would like a little bit more help with is Black 13. I know that it was used to cross into the world via the doorway cave. I think it's also similar to Merlin's grapefruit, which is Rhea of the Kuz's pink stone from Wizard and Glass. I think. Are they correlated? Is it another stone? Yes. Why is this one bad? I absolutely know I missed some details. I know they went over why Black 13 is not good in this. I'm pretty sure I just forgot to write it down, and it's slipping my mind as I'm recording. But yeah, guys, we've got some, I feel, strong Dark Tower concepts that I need a little bit of help padding my knowledge with. So if you're interested in throwing me a bone and assisting with some of these topics, I am oh so grateful. In terms of criticism, I really believe it's mixed in with the questions. The criticism and the questions are really swirled together, and again, that seems like a first-time thing in this section. I usually try and keep them pretty separate, but the Dark Tower is such a strange narrative experience, and I mean that in the best way. Therefore, everything is a little bit Alice in Wonderland. It's a little topsy-turvy, so the criticism and the questions, they're swirled together in your soft-serve ice cream cone. Let's recap. Number 1, the anticlimactic wolves encounter, ? Why don't we have a big bad? Number 2, Why is Harry Potter involved? Sneetches? Question mark. Number 3, why is Stephen King breaking the fourth wall? And why is Stephen King involved in the narrative content of the story? Unknown. Number 4, the reason for Runt is unclear / who and what is a breaker. Number 5, this is a 3-parter. This 3-part question is asking, who are the Manni? Where is the Crimson King? And Black 13, question mark. I don't even know what to ask about Black 13. Just Black 13, question mark, everybody. Oh, okay. That's our recap, my loves. And final thoughts. I have heard from many constant readers throughout the galaxy that the Dark Tower novels begin to descend in terms of quality after Wizard and Glass. I'm very saddened to hear this. I understand why. I think that post-accident King, those first few years, it's an interesting time to observe his work, but I enjoyed this. I have a couple questions and I have a few problems, but overall, I love the heart of this story, which is saving the town of Calla Sturgis. It's classic. Granted, I am a girl who's grown up in the Southwest. I have a huge soft spot for Western anything because it's quite literally my entire life. My family has been in the American Southwest for hundreds of years. On my father's side, I am Native American and our tribe is located in the state of Nevada. I am tied to this land and it's a special thing. And therefore, I give a lot of grace to anything that has the Western at its heart, because we do have the good versus evil. You have the weak, exploited, put upon villagers who are desperate. These are frightened people. They are peaceful people, and they need a set of heroes to help them. And that is the core of this story, and it's great. We do have some wild outlier threads in terms of New York City in the 70s, this Father Callahan bit, but at its heart, King keeps us grounded in a solid foundation. All things are going to help the town of Calla Sturgis to save these children, to save these families. What a beautiful core to this narrative. Love it. I don't have a problem with any of that. Everything else is just extra fun. Everything else is just toppings on the sundae. We got some nuts, we got some whipped cream, we've got some cherries. Like, I'm about it. Let's add the hot fudge. Sure, let's time travel. Let's kill vampires. Let's do it. Other than some of the questions I've asked, I enjoyed this. I really did. I think this was a solid Dark Tower novel. I'm very pleased with it. So I'm wondering, is it just Song of Susanna? Or, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't future trip too much on things being bad. I think I'm in that mindset because we're all a little doom-centered these days in the United States, at least half of us. I am happy that I enjoyed this, but I'm also curious as to if I'm supposed to. Am I missing huge problems here? Maybe I will notice more potholes on my second tower read-through, which, as we've established, is going to happen, and I'm immensely thrilled about that. To succinctly wrap a bow around it, I really enjoyed Wolves of the Calla. I really did, guys. There was a lot of decadent, exciting, frightening, upsetting depths to this narrative. This was a solid story with so many tendrils and side quests, and our characterization is incredible. I'm a pleased customer, very satisfied, very, very happy about this. I mean, it's hard to beat Wizard and Glass. Wizard and Glass is spectacular, and it still has me wounded and grieving over certain aspects of it, but this one is great. You know, I really, really enjoy Wolves of the Calla, and I think I like it. In my mind, I'm thinking about Wastelands and Drawing of the Three, and I don't know, dudes. I really think I love Wizard and Glass, and then Wolves of the Calla. Second. Am I all right? Is that normal? Is that bad? Uh-oh. Will I lose street cred? It's very possible. Very possible. As you all know, I consider myself to be the Dolly Parton of Stephen King podcasts. I'm very, very opposite in terms of the criteria that many Stephen King podcasters have in terms of having an obsession with horror and being super passionate for all things terrifying. I am a hyper-feminine fiction teacher who loves cute things and colors and candy, and I just happen to love great storytelling, and King is the master of that. He's the greatest storyteller of the last 100 years. He's the greatest storyteller, in my opinion, since Shakespeare. So that's where our paths cross. Therefore, maybe it's perfectly normal and I'm exactly where I need to be in terms of liking a Dark Tower book that might not have as many fans. Because as you know, this is the year of underrated Stephen King, where we prioritize great storytelling that doesn't get a lot of spotlight. So yes, everybody, long-winded exploration here, but I'm a fan of Wolves of the Calla. I think it might be my second favorite. Now, that could change, of course, as I make my way through the Dark Tower a second time, but I don't know, dudes. This was great. I had a really, really good time. I'm looking forward to Song of Susanna and, of course, Dark Tower 7. I will not have time in 2024 to attack either of them because, ladies and gentlemen, right now, with my Stephen King book club, I am currently 400 pages into The Stand. Of course, I know it was originally published in 1978, but we are reading the uncut manuscript. That is very, very long. As you all know, I stopped reading The Stand in 2015. I got about 600 pages in, and I don't know why I stopped, but I stopped, and wow, friends, Ka is a wheel. Yes, it is, because I am having the most incredible time rereading The Stand. It was as if it was meant to be. I was meant to not read it then, and I was meant to read it now because it is feeding my soul in a way I did not think was possible. So that's what I'm doing right now. I am reading The Stand, and my Stand coverage for my book club has been broken up into 3 months. So we've got November, December, and January. So that's what I'm currently working on. And I would love to have a Stand episode where I talk about the then and the now. But, I don't know. I'm brainstorming as we speak. I think what I might do is try and split it into books. Right now I'm just about to start book 2 with Nick and Tom Cullen finding each other. It's a really special thing. So no matter what, we're going to get some Stand coverage. In December, there's going to be a really awesome constant reader interview, followed by my favorite episode of the year, The Best of Underrated King 2024. That will release shortly after Christmas and right before New Year's. It is my favorite episode of the year because New Year's Eve is my favorite holiday. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's what I'm working on. Please expect that coming up in our last couple weeks of 2024. Thank you guys so much for listening out there. If you're a fan of the show and you would like more episodes on the year of underrated Stephen King and you've noticed I've been lagging a little bit, well, that's because I'm working on Patreon coverage. So if you are looking for more podcast coverage from myself, jump on over to the Dance Macabre with Kim C. That's patreon.com/dancewithkimc. Dance is with an S. Please become a member. I have a lot more episodes. They're shorter and sweeter and a ton of fun. Right now I'm making my way through the Nightmares and Dreamscape short story collection from 1993. Having a really, really fun time with that. We've got some wacky tales in there. We've also got a focus on Stephen King females and other extra special Stephen King coverage that I don't have room for on this show. So if you're a fan and you'd like to become a member of the Patreon, I would love that. If you'd like to say hi, please feel free to reach out at underratedsk@gmail.com. I will respond to you promptly, or you can find us on Instagram, Threads, Irish Goodbye X/Twitter. I don't want to go back on there for a while, maybe ever. And I've deleted the app from my phone. That's where we're at right now. That's all I'm going to say about that. So please feel free to find me on Instagram or Threads. I am not on TikTok. I am on Facebook, and I'm also on YouTube. You can find me on any of those outlets. And if you are interested in saying hi and receiving some personal correspondence, please feel free to send me an email at underratedsk@gmail.com. All right, dear ones, it is time to close Wolves of the Calla. I had an amazing adventure. And now I must return to the world of Captain Trips. Flag is gathering his flock, as is Mother Abigail. Maybe I needed all these years to happen, all these years of reading King and making King friends and having this incredible journey to appreciate what has been there all along. Ka is a whale, baby, I get it! Thank you guys so much. Long days and pleasant nights, dear friends. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.